Yeah, it's basically looking at what can be done to be more proactive than reactive. It's kind of the direction, the overarching question.
Are you asking me?
Yeah.
Oh. I don't know that we're anything but proactive because things don't exist when we make them exist. We make them happen. If that's not the definition of proactive, I'm not sure what is. You know, there'll be an empty void where now there's a customer. I think proactive versus reactive, I think, is more important from the standpoint of maintaining existing business. And that's a very important concept that I'm not sure, at least from the standpoint of how they want my guys to be paid, I don't think the company values that.
Proactive in maintaining existing business?
Yeah.
Do you keep track of how many new versus existing they spend time on a weekly basis?
I don't have a metric for that, but
Okay.
during my calls, that pretty much fleshes itself out.
Okay. Is there a standard you're looking for as to what percentage is spent on new, first-time opening conversations?
Again, there's no metric to define that. I think it's just when you asked me earlier, I said I'm looking for progress.
Mm-hmm.
Progress would mean growth with new potential accounts. I'm not really all that interested in hearing about the problems at existing accounts. I'll listen to them, but I expect the sales rep to provide the resources to handle those problems.
Okay. Like what kind of problems would they have?
Product problems, typically.
Okay.
Problems don't normally arise if the product's working fine.
Mm-hmm.
Products arise typically due to malfunctions, lack of reliability, reliability is the word. If there's a lack of reliability, that's going to make a customer look elsewhere. And can that reliability be a broken cable, a broken interface with the cable?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and that's not uncommon
Mm-hmm.
with one of our products. So when that's happening, we need to have a solution for that.
Sure. I imagine that we have contracts. You have contracts with hospitals as well.
Mm-hmm.
How long is a contract?
3 to 5 years.
Okay.
But our contracts have just been developed thanks to this lady. What we considered a contract before really isn't one.
Mm.
It was a consignment agreement where we would provide equipment,
Mm-hmm.
and the hospital would use the sensors. If the hospital stopped using the sensor, they just had to send the consignment agreement, or the consigned equipment back.
Yeah. Okay. So that put the competitors in a better advantage because they had this ironclad contract where they provided all the equipment and you had to buy the sensors, and if you didn't buy the sensors, you know, you're stuck with the contract. I mean,
Which we now have. And we will be using them on every contract that we
mm-hmm.
Want to have signed, regardless of the product.
Hmm. So is there a sales methodology that you like, Joe, or an author?
Is there a what?
Sales methodology or philosophy, or you subscribe closely
Mm-hmm.
to this particular author or system, or?
Yes. I believe that my philosophy of sales would be when you're able to identify through conversation a customer's perceived solution, even if there's not a problem existing, a perceived improvement or a perceived solution, that is half the battle. And if you're not a good listener, you're probably going to miss various cues that would permit you to identify that and embellish upon it. And that sales is a process. I think it's very paradoxical. I think the more you try to control it, the less you do. I think if you permit the process and support the process as the customer sees it, within reason, you're probably better off. And that's not being non-aggressive. It's being compliant with the process, as I call it. And I think that one thing that a lot of salespeople don't do, and it can be done without appearing like an aggressive idiot, is to hold the customer accountable for commitments they make to us. And that can be done in a good way. I'll give you an example. Just recently, NITI has an evaluation going at NYU. They want to do it for 30 days. Now, 30 days is that's 1/12 of the year that your time is taken now supporting an account that you don't even have yet. I'm a huge believer in limiting evaluations to no more than a week. And I have yet to have a customer not permit that. And apparently, he didn't even ask. And you've got to be able to say, if you want to do this for 30 days, there's ways we can arrange it, but hear me out. If you're willing to put me in touch with the 2 or 3 clinicians that you feel will be instrumental in this decision, I would suggest we limit this evaluation to 1 week. And I will spend the entire week here. I will thoroughly train these 2 or 3 clinicians. And then if you value their opinion and they can make the decision, then I'm fine with that. If that's not acceptable, and you absolutely have to do 30 days, I have to put some requirements on that. One, I'm going to train as many people as I feel capable of training for that. I will not be here for 30 days. I'll be here for the first 3 or 4 days, and no one untrained can touch this equipment. And, I don't hear anybody saying, a couple of my guys will say, we don't do 30 days. They'll just say, we don't do 30-day evaluations. Skinner, 30 days, we don't do 30-day evaluations. And then the customer says, okay, how many days can I have it? But that's a little bit, that's not my style. But that's his, and he gets away with it. I don't know how I got on that subject. I forgot the point that made me think of
We're
that.
just talking about kind of your philosophy and methodology Is there an author that you like, or a sales book, or?
No, I don't read that stuff.
Okay.
I really don't. Never have. I thought those that can do and those that can't teach. And actually, I did read one once, but I can't remember the author, and I did like it.
Okay.
I think it was Sales Management for Dummies. No, there is such a book.
Oh,
There's an e-commerce for dummies. I got that one.
But
So we probably have 10 minutes till Joe has to leave, and I've kind of been tasked with, you and I can wrap up later.
Okay.
I promise I'll be available, but there's kind of a statement of works, a purchase rec at some point, but I don't know, I'm not feeling like I got my arms around what we want to do yet.
I don't know that I was very helpful to you either.
Well, you've given me a lot of information and insight as to, what you expect from your sales team and what you expect when they're out in the marketplace representing the company.
Yeah.
One of the initiatives is to look at doing an overall sales assessment, to look at opportunities on making a difference in the sales results, obviously. What are some of the areas that you think are worth investing in when it comes to changing the results and obviously the revenue that's generated annually for the company?
Yeah. Until we prove ourselves, I wouldn't suggest this, but once we prove ourselves, the company needs to invest in clinical specialists because they're going to be a requirement. Because when we get our first couple of accounts that are hospital-wide sensor conversions,
Mm-hmm.
and again, I don't know how much you know, but that's really a big task.
Mm-hmm.
Right now, we don't have the resources to even handle one of those. So I'm going to have to second a couple of my salespeople to the guy that made the sale
Mm-hmm.
and our one clinical specialist
Hmm.
to be able to support that sale. That takes two of my salespeople out of their territory,
Mm-hmm.
sends them down to support this
Mhm.
new sale. And I'm not going to ask for that now because that would be just, I might as well hope for a Lamborghini parked in my garage at this point. But, it's important that we be able to support these. And I'll tell you what, we bring in a couple of $500,000 accounts, and I think Phil Isaacson will be the first one to say, where do I write the check? That would just make sense.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think it'll be an issue. But I hope that somebody's aware of that right now we don't have the human resources to support what we're going after. And I knew that.
Mm-hmm.
So did Chris. We'll make it happen. We'll make it work. Heck, we'll bring in Andrea if we have to, that didn't come out right. You'd be more than capable of doing that. I'm sorry. That's not the way I wanted that to sound.
I let the professionals sell. I support.
Well, the sale's made.
Yeah.
This is the
Yeah.
support afterwards.
Yeah.
And we don't have that right now. And you know how important supporting
Do you
the
think
sales
that's
is,
having
right?
an effect on salespeople? Do you think that's having an effect on them? They'll,
That's a very good question.
If I sell
and-
it, no way we could support it. Now I base my reputation, and now
That's a very good question, and it's a mixed bag. Some yes,
Okay.
some no. My answer, they've expressed it to me, the
Okay.
ones that have that.
I imagine they would.
And I've
because,
said-
if Joe goes with another company, I want to be able to go with Joe because I want to be able to have a reputation.
I said, we will have the resources for your sale. Whether or not we will have them for subsequent sales, I don't know, but we're gonna have it for yours, even if I have to bring in every other salesperson
Mm-hmm.
into your account to support it. You have my word on that.
Mm-hmm.
I said, okay, that's good. And I've got to believe, if we get 2 or 3 of these, there's just no way they're not gonna want our salespeople out selling, not supporting each other's conversions. Now I am interviewing at 12:30 somebody for a clinical specialist
Okay.
position, and she's really good, boy.
Good.
I hope we get her.
Where's she
But
located?
She's in Savannah, Georgia, the lucky dog.
Oh.
I'm going there in a couple weeks. I should get some tips from her. So we talked about, I don't know, shortening the sales cycle, negotiating, and you wanted to pull from Joe some needs so you could do a statement of works.
Right. So we can contribute to
Yeah,
put a,
yeah.
And so clinical specialist is one area that's worth pursuing.
Clearly. My goal in that respect is to have one clinical specialist for every sales rep.
Okay.
That would be optimal.
Mm-hmm. Okay. What other areas do you feel investing in would generate more revenue?
I'm not even sure investing, redirecting some resources would be interesting. Yeah, I keep being told this is being done, so I don't want to ask you to suggest something that I keep being told is already on paper and in the works. But
Well, it may validate it. It may reinforce the need. It may
Yeah.
add more emphasis to it. I want to do a comprehensive assessment. That's my goal, to be able to look at everything that's going on in the sales channel from an outside perspective, and then to be able to look at ways of implementing that assessment. So if it's 60% or 70%, and there's still another 30 or 40% that's not included, it doesn't make it a comprehensive assessment, and then you start getting out of balance because now you got to integrate part of it, and then part of it's not going to be affected. It's
True.
It's like when I go into an organization and they've got 15 salespeople, and they say, Scott, 5 of them are doing really well. I don't want you to work with those 5. I want you to work with the 10 that are struggling. And I'm going, time out here. I'm going to go in and I'm probably going to give advice to 10